Certainly, it is admirable that we have a mission as a permanent mission of Kingdom of Jordan to dedicate itself with all full conviction to such a noble initiative and promote in Geneva interreligious dialogue in peaceful coexistence between the faithful of different religions. The first thought that came to my mind when I was invited to take part in this panel is the unity of its origin and the shared destiny of the human family. These are indeed the same principles that inspired King Abdullah II and Prince Ghazi bin Muhammad to put forward the proposal for the United Nations for the resolutions that brings such an important fruit in the international community. The resolution perceives rightly that the moral imperatives of all religions, convictions and beliefs call for peace, tolerance and mutual understanding. Indeed, interfaith dialogue, before being a discussion on the main themes of faith, is always a conversation about our human existence. Today it seems important to see the dialogue at all levels: diplomatic, among religious traditions and intercultural. Pope Francis, through many symbolic actions, has proven that meeting one another in fraternal friendship is a powerful sign, one that shows the harmony which religions can build together, based on personal relations and on the goodwill of those responsible. Indeed, it is not mere tolerance of one another that should represent our common ground, because tolerance has a negative meaning. Relations among religious traditions should be based on more dynamic concept of brotherhood instead, because we will be accountable not only for the actions we make, but also for those that we omit to do. In this regard, interfaith harmony must not be limited to a mere peaceful coexistence. The true meaning of peaceful coexistence is mutual enrichment. Peace must be seen in its positive and dynamic connotation. Peace is not simply acknowledging the status quo, but rather a continuous and proactive improvement of our situation as human family. For these reasons, a peace based on fear and on a deterrence cannot be considered a real peace. We are all concerned about evolving the situation in today's world. Archbishop Gallagher, Secretary for the Relations with the State of the Holy See, said, "We cannot accept that nuclear weapons are simply an unavoidable means of maintaining a balance of power through a balance of terror. As pilgrims of peace, we must challenge these ways of thinking. This is all the more urgent today because the possibility of setting in motion the terrible mechanism of general destruction is unfortunately very real." On a more practical level, the relevance of proactive interreligious dialogue and its contribution to the pursuit of common good can be appreciated while addressing other major concerns in our times. Let us think about human rights, migration, climate change, trade regulations, protection of the environment, and prevention of conflicts. In order to effectively manage these global issues, there can be no alternative but also interfaith dialogue and a concerted effort. When analyzing the situations of tension and conflict that have emerged during recent years in the international scenario, a dangerous temptation is to place them in the perspective of the clash of civilization, thus making the latter as an inevitable self-fulfilling prophecy. But this interpretation entails a negative take on religions. On the contrary, At the origin of this dramatic situation, there is a limited vision of the human person that paves to the way to the spread of injustice and inequality, thus leading to conflict situations. Indeed, as it is in the mind and hearts of men that wars being, it is from within our hearts and our minds that the search for justice and peace must begin. Dialogue among religious traditions can greatly contribute to shape the human conscience, a moral patrimony widely shared, which expresses a universal ethical message. The form and the extension of this tradition can considerably differ according to the cultures and situations, but nevertheless, they remind us of the existence of a patrimony of moral values common to all human beings. Peace building through active non-violence is the natural necessary complement also for the Catholic Church in its continuing efforts to limit the use of force by resorting to the moral norms. In many parts of the world, beginning in the Middle East, such approach is much indeed now needed, not only to bring an end to the Syrian conflict, but also to foster fully reconciled societies and to renew peaceful civil coexistence. I would like to draw to your attention to certain activities of the Holy See in the last year, especially the Pope Francis, that can be a prophetic sign of capacity of religious organization, many religious organizations to contribute to a change in the society and in general modifying general political atmosphere. Pope Francis has made of interreligious dialogue one of his priority. In his symbolic visit to this year to Central, last year, we're talking to the past year, in the Central African Republic, Pope Francis approached Muslim, Catholic, and Protestants, asking to place the love of one another above everything, proving that religion does not divide people but rather unites them. Peace is essential to the development of the world, to establish a culture of dialogue and encounter for a future that is truly inclusive for everyone, without any marginalization. The effects of this visit were considered greatly positive and are bringing new hope for the region. The second statement which we at the Catholic Church consider important was a letter of the Pope to the bishops of Nigeria, where he urged that massacring innocent people in the name of God is not religion, but the manipulation of the religion for ulterior motives. In fact, believers everywhere have experienced a common tragic outcome at the hands of people who claim to be religious, but who instead abuse the religion to make it an ideology for their own distorted interest of exploration and murder. As we know, these ideas are shared by all the religious leaders, practically. But it's important that we have these icons, these images, these statements fixed in important events, solemn events, formal events. We consider also the recent visit of the Pope Francis to Sweden to commemorate 500 years of reform, also as a step to bring a broader vision of tolerance, mutual acceptance to the international family, to human family. Even when we have peace, there is still, the peace is always alive if you have a pro-action attitude. If you stop and rest, peace disappears very soon. The same meaning could have also historical meeting between the Pope and the Patriarch Kirill of Moscow in Cuba, which is also something that is probably of enormous importance, especially for Europe, but also for other more broad region, certainly for every country, all the places where we have the Catholic and Orthodox tradition. This year we have also the journey of the Pope to Armenia, Georgia, and Azerbaijan. Also very considerable, important event, expected and accepted with gratitude and appreciation. The other example of concerns of promotion of peace is also what the Catholic Church can do in the countries that are of Catholic tradition, especially in Latin America. And we know that important change happened in Colombia, and the Catholic Church certainly was present. Also with this new broad vision of necessity to work positively and actively for peace. The Catholic Church also tries and continues to stay together with all those who are looking for peaceful solution of the social conflict in Venezuela, a big country, important country that is somehow having difficulties to find a new model of social order, which is always necessary to discover and to reinvent continuously. I would like to conclude my intervention by stressing once again that we all belong to one human family and reiterate the significance and urgency of interreligious dialogue. As religions can build bridges and be creative mediators of peace, dialogue is essential if we are to know, understand, and respect one another. But as experience has shown, for such dialogue and encounter to be effective, it must be grounded in the full and forthright presentation of our respective convictions. Certainly, such dialogue will accentuate how varied our beliefs, traditions, and practices are. But if we are honest and in presenting our convictions, we'll be able to see more clearly what we hold in common. Thank you for your attention.